Oh, not really, no. I won't say very much. It's nice to be here virtually. Yeah, let's see what happens. I hope I can give you something to think about. Okay, thanks very much. Nice to be with you here this evening. Me in Kalmar, you in Malmö, and some more people out there on YouTube. I've got a slideshow. Yes, yeah, surprise, surprise, of course. I'm going to give a sort of personal view of lifelong learning, where it's going and what opportunities there are. As always in this sort of setting, I could be saying things that are incredibly obvious to you. There could be some new things. If you would like if you'd like my slides, then you might want to very quickly take a photograph of or make a note of this shortened link. And if you go to that, you can go through the slides, because the slides contain quite a lot of links that might be interesting for you. So take a quick photo of that or note it down. Pencil and paper works as well. So I'll leave that there for a minute or two. Yeah, Linnaeus University, there's Kalmar Castle in the background. Our campus in Kalmar is just opposite that, I suppose, that way. I work in the Centre for Higher Education Development. I suppose I'm a sort of e-learning specialist, been studying and working with this for the last 15 years or so. I mostly work with higher education, but I'm also interested in all levels of education and how we can use technology to enhance it. I hope you have now sorted out the link. So I will click, and there's the title and contact possibilities there. I'm on Twitter. I'm quite active there. New paths to learning. A question first for you. And you're welcome in the studio there just to shout out. But I mean, where do you learn new skills nowadays? Where do you go? You want to learn something. Where do you go? Where are you going to go first? YouTube. Any others? Udemy, yeah. They'll come back to them. Reddit. Yeah, you go out on the net and look for it. LinkedIn Learning, yeah, we're coming down. I'll mention all those, yes. You go out on the net and you find it. Of course, there's the good old-fashioned way of asking a friend. If you happen to know someone who knows something about it, it's a good way to start. But you know, it's we can access new skills, we can access new knowledge more easily than ever before. And there are courses out there that we can start immediately. We don't have to wait till next year. The trouble is that in our world today, we have sort of the old system still going very, very strong, and we have new new actors on the scene, and the two sort of these sectors don't really intersect yet. And that's what I'm going to be talking about. If we look at lifelong learning and what we mean by it, there's a definition. There are several definitions, but it's about knowledge and skills, gaining them through your life, and the need that, of course, today we need to get new knowledge and skills constantly throughout our careers. We need to change careers. We need to change jobs, sometimes suddenly and unexpectedly. We need to be able to adapt. And we're not going to do that in the traditional system where we'll have to sort of go back and live in a university town and go on a course for a couple of years. We need to learn while we're working. So there are many, many opportunities for that today. And what we see happening is the boundaries are blurring between formal, non-formal, and informal learning. And by that, I mean the formal learning system of the universities and the schools and formal qualifications. The non-formal sector is corporate training, where you get certificates. It could be open courses. It could be some of the platforms that you mentioned just now. They give various forms of certificates and credentials that are not strictly formal, but they're not completely informal. And then we have the informal learning that takes place between friends and colleagues on internet groups, in communities, on YouTube or wherever, learning on the go. these are mixing more and more, and it's hard to see where one starts and the other one ends. And we need to try and fill in the gaps between the different sectors of education that we have at the moment. And again, they cover most fields of learning, but they cover them in a very traditional way. In all these cases, they are courses that start at a certain time and end at a certain time. And very often you have to be in the right geographical place, though more and more are available online, but many are still very much anchored in a particular place and time. And if that doesn't suit you, well, come back next year if you're lucky. The Nordic concept of folkbildning, of course, is a little bit of an exception and rather not unique in the world, but certainly has had a very strong role in the Nordic education sector, with study circles led by non-experts and very much a collaborative approach to learning. And that's something that's coming back on the digital side. One way of learning is using and building personal learning networks. We all have these. We don't often realize how powerful they are. We have networks of contacts throughout the country and throughout the world, building networks of trust. And we do that in social media very much, in that I mentioned that I have an account on Twitter. Now, if you listen to me and decide, well, Alastair sounds as if he knows what he's talking about, maybe I'll follow him on Twitter. And then you see what I broadcast on Twitter, and that I write a lot of links to interesting articles. I give tips about conferences and what's happening in my field. And that means I become part of your trusted network, even if we've never met and we have no real personal relationship. And maybe you might reply to something I write on Twitter and I reply back, and we build up some kind of trust with each other. And that can develop and spill over into other networks. It could spill over into LinkedIn or ResearchGate and so on. Using these networks, and also you might want to look at, who do I follow? And you could follow the people that I follow, because if you trust me, you trust that I follow people who are worth following. So if you're interested in my field, you trust the people that I follow, and I follow the people that they follow, and we build a worldwide network. And that can take place on many, many channels, many, many clouds, and your personal learning network becomes a whole sort of galaxy in a way of connections. And these connections can lead you to knowledge. And I think it was George Siemens who said, he was talking about, we're going from know how to know who. Because I might not know the answer to this, but if I put a question out within my networks and say, has anyone got any experience of this? Very often I can get an answer from someone I've hardly ever heard of, who will say, yes, we did a project on that last year. Here's a link to our results. I have suddenly got access to something that I wouldn't have got through simply searching on the net, because I'm getting it from a trusted source, and we can help each other. And I found in education, people are very, very generous in helping. And if you ask a question, people are very keen to help you. So if you know who, you can find out how. You can also build some parts of this network into a community. If there is a common purpose, you can build on a network and make it into a community where people are more known to each other and you're working to a certain purpose. And that way, it's a sort of organic world. And through these personal learning networks that you develop, you have a wonderful source of learning. I have written articles with people I have met on Twitter, and it's work. I'm doing that right this minute. I've never met this person physically. We've now met on Zoom and we've collaborated, and we're almost finished an article which we plan to submit this week. And one day, maybe we might meet each other. Who knows? But we decided to trust each other, and now we've come as far as that. I talked about study circles and the Nordic tradition of study circles. And I think that's part of this sort of personal learning network system. And I think we can build on this very well. There are ways of learning together through social media groups, a lot of Facebook groups, LinkedIn groups, etc., where you can get a lot of knowledge and you can find a lot of contacts. YouTube channels provide a source of knowledge. Discussion groups, online communities, there are many ways to do that. In a way, it is following on from the study circle concept. It's just online and even less organized sometimes than the study circles that we have physically. We have enormous amounts of open educational resources that are free to use and in many cases free to adapt and reuse. There's mountains of resources there. There is free access to material. You can learn if you are good at learning. And I'll come back to that because there is so much we can learn from if we know where to find it and we know how to use it. And that, in a way, is a major society problem because we have a big digital gap between those who know how to do this and can benefit and those who don't even know it's there. We have open courses, massive open online courses. I've been around for 14 years now, and they continue to grow. More on that in a minute. You can even combine digital courses with on-site meetings. There are people who join together. They all study a MOOC from a university somewhere else in the world, but they meet every week to discuss the course themselves without the knowledge of the university providing the course. That's another study circle activity that can be built on digital courses, and that's happening. There's even a wonderful example. There's a site called Studystream, which came to fore during the pandemic, during the lockdown period, especially around the world. And this is an amazing community because you log into a stream and all you see is a lot of students sitting, studying. No one says anything, but people sit studying very hard. Some are writing, some are reading, some have got a cat with them or whatever, but you can look at all these people studying and that inspires you to continue studying. So they all say, now we're going to have a 3-hour study session, let's go, microphones off, but we all see each other studying. It's like being in the library. It helps you to concentrate because you can see everyone else studying. Bizarre, but it works. It's psychologically, you feel you're studying together with other people. A lot of things have happened during the pandemic about creative courses. Many courses are, we used to think that they were impossible to do online. How on earth do you study pottery online? How do you study music online? How do you study embroidery online? Before, many people would just say, oh, it's not possible. Now we know it is. There are a lot of very innovative courses going on, both at university level, within adult education, and in schools where practical subjects are being taught and new methods and new ideas are being used all the time. This is developing at a very fast rate. A lot of video involved, of course. And it's very, very multimedia, using different, it's video, it's audio, it's text, it's diagrams, it's shared mind maps and so on. It's synchronous and it's asynchronous. A lot of group work goes on. Using the media and using the media, the tools for distance education in a creative way. There's a link here, it's in Swedish, but it's a very nice guide for practical and aesthetic teaching online. And it's good examples of just teaching pottery online or music or photography or painting or dance. As I said, it's in Swedish, but if you've got the slideshow, you can jump along and see what happens. Very interesting to see what's going on. Whew. This is real old-fashioned lecturing, isn't it? Stop for questions. Any ideas? Anything from the chat in YouTube or in the studio? Just comments or experience.
I have a comment. It's like this problem, I think, with informal learning and networks and all this, is that you don't really know that the people who are talking about it know what they're talking about. And universities and schools, they have a cred of saying at least that they know what they're talking about. Do you have any thoughts about how to bridge, how to get over this so that you actually know that you get a good teacher even in an informal learning setting?
Yeah, that's very difficult. Who do we trust? Vem i hela världen kan man lita på? I think it's something we have to learn. It's a skill. We do have to learn who to trust. We have to learn which. If we see a private individual who puts a course or some kind of learning object out on the net, we have to have a look at who is this person. What are they, do they belong to any organization? Is there any, have they got a track record? What qualifications do they have? How do I know this is any good, or is this just complete nonsense? We need to do a bit of research first. It's your responsibility. It's a little bit like deciding who's going to build a wall around your garden. Are you going for a company with a good reputation, or are you going to try Happy Harry's building company, who were established 2 weeks ago and run out of a post box somewhere? You've got to, yeah.
Yeah, that is always a problem with contractors, I must say. Okay,
yeah.
Thank you. Any more questions from the audience?
Or experience of good practice.
Yes.
Have you done anything really interesting on the net? Have you learned any practical skills like this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you hear me from this one? I thought it was from.
Yeah, I think.
Okay. Non-formal, did you say? Non-formal education, where you get the when you, for example, listen to a course from Udemy, mentioned just before here, is still very traditional learning. Is that weird that we don't have any more developed services like that? You just listen to video and stop and go on and so on. Couldn't there be more development there? That's a thought I have.
Yeah, the question is sort of, a lot of the online learning that's available is very, very traditional. And that's true, sadly. There's sort of still online learning 1.0. It's just traditional lecture, recorded lecture, quiz, recorded lecture, quiz. And sadly, that gives everything a rather bad name. There are lots of creative and collaborative courses, but it's sometimes hard to find them. And many of the sort of corporate solutions are often rather dull, or they have very glossy packaging, and the videos look good, but it's still, it's pretty, as you said, it's pretty traditional and not terribly inspiring. And we need to. That's where a lot of research is going in at the moment about how to make online learning more collaborative and active. And very much what I'm trying to investigate and work with. But it's, I can't sort of point to exactly one place where it is absolutely brilliant. It depends what you're doing. Some of these traditional courses are just what you want. You want to learn quickly a basic introduction to a topic. So a course like that, fine. And some people don't want any group work or any interactive stuff. They just want to, just give me the knowledge and I'll go. Yeah. I'm not sure if that microphone is really doing much.
And I don't speak very loudly, so. But it's not a question.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say I also have the experience from Udemy that it's quite bad in being interactive, or they have their forums, but the course leaders don't necessarily reply to your questions. But I think there are a lot of courses that actually do a really good job with that, and they have office hours, just like regular courses, and forums where learners can talk to each other. And I've done a few courses that were really good like that, and then you do them in your own time, but you still get the support that you would get in a traditional course.
Sorry, that microphone doesn't help at all. I only hear you way in the distance.
But did you have a tip of, was it Udemy that you had done these courses with office hours and things? CS50. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So office hours helps.
And the big problem with a lot of online courses is this: if they're fixed in time, then it restricts the people who can actually take part in them, because, as you say, if they're in office hours, how do I find time to go on the course if I'm working? And anything that is synchronous is going to be a problem. People from different time zones, it becomes a problem. People with different working hours. So really the ideal course has to be mostly asynchronous, where you can interact with the material, but the conversations and the discussions are asynchronous rather than everyone being in one place at one time. And again, that's something that many courses haven't really dealt with.
Thank you. But what is the challenges and limitations for you? I mean, being a representative for Linnéuniversitetet as School of Higher Education, I mean, how would you adapt to this new emerging world of other forms of learning and stuff like that? What's the challenges for you?
Well, that you couldn't have asked a better question, because just by coincidence, the next slide. Yes, I'll look at higher education a little bit now in reply to your question. Is that what's happening within higher education? Well, we have new student groups. I think basically the whole concept of student has to be revised. When we think of student, we think of young people, but students are our age. Students are all ages today, and more students at university are people in midlife or later who are learning new skills. The new student groups are wanting lifelong learning, professional development, and reskilling. And online is default for them, because they are not going to pack up and move to Malmö or Lund or Kalmar or wherever and live here for 2 or 3 years to get another degree. They want to learn from home, where they are now, where they have a family, where they have a job, where they have a life, and they're not prepared to run about the country. So online is default for this market. They also want shorter programs, because they already have work experience, which we should be able to validate and take into consideration. So instead of maybe doing a 2 years master's, could we make it into a 1 year master, because they already have a lot of the skills and knowledge that's necessary for that master's degree. So we need to adapt and provide different types of educational opportunities. We need to be much more flexible in our delivery. Sadly, in the higher education sector, we are still very restricted by university terms. You study in the spring or you study in the autumn. And if you want to study in the spring, then you have to put in your application several months before to go through the whole selection process. Whereas in this older student group, I want this course like in a couple of weeks, please, or next month. But I'm not going to be very interested if you say, oh, you'll have to wait till next year to do that. I don't have that time, and I'll go somewhere else where I can find something that meets my demands. So This is a massive market. And do we really want this market? Because the higher education sector is, if I'm a little bit critical here, we are still built around the traditional campus, the traditional younger student target group, and the courses run term by term for certain amounts of credits leading up to a degree. It's a very fixed schedule. You start here, you end here. And if we want this growing market, we're going to have to change that. We're going to have to offer much more flexible courses. The legislation, the rule book for higher education doesn't really allow a lot of this flexibility. We're getting better at it, but we're not flexible enough, and we're not fast enough. Sometimes to approve a new course, it can take a process of 1.5 to 2 years before I can think of a course now and I can actually introduce it into the curriculum. Maybe in 2023 I can get it in. There's a long time before I can get that course out there. This is again a Swedish link, but I was involved in a project the last few years called Nya vägar för flexibilitet i högre utbildning. And if you're interested, we've got several reports there about this particular problem, about providing higher education to everybody in the country, wherever you live. We're seeing campus and distance sort of merging, especially now with the pandemic, and more people questioning, why do I actually need to be on the campus at all? You would think it was obvious for many young people, of course. Student life, getting friends, networking, extremely important and always will be. But if you're older and you already have the social life and you already have a family and you already have a job, is this campus that we've spent millions and millions of kroner updating, is it really terribly relevant to me if I'm never going to be there? And how do we get these two worlds to meet? Can we get the campus students working with the older, experienced online students? Can we integrate the two? Maybe we need to provide a digital campus. I don't mean that we take away the physical campus, that's always going to be needed, but we need somewhere where everyone can meet, where all students and staff can meet together. At Linnaeus University, we have a campus in Växjö and a campus in Kalmar, and we have students all over the world. The only place they can all meet together is online. And what does our online campus really look like today? We need to provide a bridge. We need to provide digital spaces for collaboration, networking, and social activities. It could look like this this picture taken from the virtual world Second Life many years ago. There are more and more virtual world solutions. I'm not sure if that's the answer, but we need somewhere where a digital space where students feel safe, where staff feel safe, where you can meet and have conversations and encounters and network with people who are not on the same course as you, not in the same faculty, not in the same location. There's no obvious answer to this, but this is what we're looking for. It's not just about learning management systems like Canvas or Moodle or whatever, because there you're in a little box. You meet only the people on your course and no one else. In the UK, we talked a few years ago about the sticky campus and the idea that how do we make a campus that people want to be in? It's sticky, you want to stay there. You can't leave it, it's so much fun. How do we make a sticky digital campus? Those are questions. I don't have the answers just now, but I can see a great need for this if we're going to move forward. In the Yep. Yep.
The first question is, do you have any reflections on the best technical equipment for successful collaborative online learning environments with multiple participants, multiple locations, using different devices?
There's no magic solution to anything. I would suggest it's probably a combination of different tools. but I don't see any sort of one-stop shop that does everything. I could talk a long time, but I mean, there are good tools to use, but there are so many. Now, there's no one answer to that, I'm afraid. If someone knows a magic answer, I'm interested.
Thank you. The next question from YouTube. There are fields, cultures where formal evidence, university certificates and diplomas is a must. Do you have any experience or knowledge about changes in this matter, if they're ongoing at all?
It depends. It varies in different parts of the world. I've traveled a lot over the years and been to many countries. I know in some countries they still see online education as not valid. But if you've done an online course or degree, it's not accepted. Again, I think we need to update our views on this. I think we have to find ways of quality assurance on courses. We need to find ways of deciding that the quality is good enough. We need to revise our views of what is good teaching and learning, and realize that that can happen both online and physically. I think we can also have an awful lot of extremely bad courses and bad education in the classroom. We all can imagine and remember extremely bad courses we've been on. Just because it's in a physical location doesn't mean to say it is exciting and collaborative and innovative. I've been on so many staggeringly boring courses in classrooms over the years. I find online much more challenging and interesting. But yeah, it's a matter for again, we need more cooperation between countries. We need to revise our ideas. Slow change, but maybe the pandemic is hurrying it up.
Yeah, and this is a comment from me. I think it's interesting. Is it the knowledge we're after, or is it the diploma? And in lifelong learning, you might say that could be the knowledge, but of course, we always also need a diploma in some capacity to say that we know what we know.
Yeah.
Going back to my previous question is, how do we know people know stuff?
Yeah, and this is a big problem because an awful lot of people don't go to university to learn anything. They go to university to get a certificate. And whether you remember anything or not, it doesn't matter. I've got the certificate. And that sadly is the result of certificates and accrediting. It becomes a hard currency, and people are only interested in getting the final result rather than actually learning something. I want to press on because I see time galloping here. I'm just mention open universities because we don't have one in Sweden, and I think we possibly could have benefited from it. They don't exist in the Nordic countries, sadly. But there are 77 open universities around the world. There's a link to the list on Wikipedia. I've visited quite a lot of them. And the thing about the open universities is that they have low or no admission criteria. Basically, in Sweden, we can say, yes, we have free higher education, but that's if you can get in. We say no to thousands of students every year. We say, there's no room for you in this course. You can't get in. What do they do? Where do they go? Do they say, okay, I'm too stupid, I'll give up that idea? Yes, you can take the högskoleprovet, you can go back to school and all this sort of thing. But the idea with the open universities is this is the people who missed out on school, who didn't really succeed. And if they think they're good enough, they get in. You are the judge of it. And it normally works because, if I don't know anything about physics, I will not volunteer to study a degree course in nuclear physics because I know that I don't know anything at all. So I think anyone with any sort of self-awareness will decide what is suitable for them. But there are no admission criteria. Everyone gets in. And this gives students who would not otherwise have access to traditional higher education can get in. And these universities help people who are maybe single parents, people who have very little money, people who are from underprivileged backgrounds, from minorities, living in remote areas, etc. Of course, it's distance and online. In many countries, you have to pay a fee. The fees are generally lower at open universities, and there is a lot of opportunity for stipendia so that even the poorest can afford that. There are open universities who do not charge if you have a very low income. The first open university was actually founded in 1873, so the idea is anything but new. And these universities thrive. The picture is from Athabasca University, which is Canada's open university, and it's based in a town in the wilds of Alberta, which is about the size of Hultsfred. Or it's I suppose if I think of Skåne, it's like Simrishamn having a university. And they are world famous, showing that you can start a university in the most unlikely place. Another model that I have got to know very well that shows how we can provide higher education to the whole country is back in my homeland, Scotland, the University of the Highlands and Islands. And their slogan is locally based, regional in structure, and with national and international reach. They have become a very reputable university. They started in 2011 when they got university recognition. If you see the map of Scotland, you'll see that they are present in all the parts of Scotland that don't have another university. There is more than half of the country is covered by one university. And before them, there was nothing. And it's a very distributed university based on 13 independent colleges, which offer higher education and vocational education. They also form research institutes. They also have a network of small local learning centres and claim that you are never more than, I think, 25 kilometres away from 15-degree programs, no matter where you live. Very flexible for students and strong cooperation with local industry and services. You can investigate their site. I think it's a very interesting model that could be used in Sweden to provide higher education to remote areas, to areas that don't have a full university today. And I think there are a lot of possibilities in this model, and it definitely works. If I jump on, as we're running into the end here, MOOCs we mentioned, massive open online courses, and this development has been astounding, starting with the very first ones in 2008. The boom came after 2011. Now there are a lot of different platforms or consortia with partners, and those partners are nearly all universities, offering thousands of courses in many languages around the world. Coursera, edX, Future Learn are very popular, English language ones, mostly started in the USA or the UK, but with partner universities all around the world. If you speak French, there's the French platform. China has several platforms. Russia has a platform, Universarium. Japan, there's EU ones in different languages. There's an Italian platform, Spanish, Latin American, Arabic. There's a Thai one, there's an Indian one, it goes on and on. It's very hard to know what a MOOC is nowadays. There are many, many forms of them, and very widely varying in form and pedagogy. Many are very, very traditional, but many are very creative and very collaborative, and not all of them are massive. We're going to talk about 50 Shades of Open. Some of them are not very open at all anymore. You have to pay for almost everything, whereas others are completely open to the extent that you can actually copy the whole course and run it yourself if you want, if you give credit to the original creators. They're becoming very, very commercialized, but many universities, even in Europe especially, offer MOOCs for credit. They offer degree programs made up of MOOCs, which are much, much cheaper than going to campus. And this is becoming also quite popular. MOOCs can be used as introductory courses, a taster for a particular topic that can invite you to learn more through traditional courses. It can be a way of raising the university's profile. Many universities have gained world fame through these MOOCs. You can offer credits with examination at the end of the course, have a proper legal examination with ID control and everything. And if you pass the exam, you get credits. You can even, as I said, create courses that other institutions can offer. An interesting combination of the study circle and formal education is the idea of wrapped MOOCs. And this we've actually tried at Linnaeus University to take a MOOC from somewhere else and integrate it into a campus course with us. So a colleague of mine who teaches German, they took a German course from a German university in writing academic German. They got our students to enroll for that course. They studied that course, and our teachers met them every week to review what they had learnt on the German course and practice. So our teachers didn't have to do the lecturing. That was done by the German lecturers on this course, and we provided the context and we examined at the end and gave them credits. So we took someone else's course, like a course book, and then worked around it. You can also do that with maybe an American course, which you can offer or let your students do that, and then have meetings every week where you discuss the course content, but in Swedish, providing deeper understanding, meeting other people locally, and applying it to local standards. And wrote a little article about that you might want to watch. New paths, we mentioned the commercial platforms for sort of more spontaneous online learning like Udemy, Skillshare, and LinkedIn Learning. Here you can get that just-in-time learning. You can go in there, find a course about what you want to learn, do it, you get a certificate, you're good to go. These certificates, we'll see if they are they going to replace traditional certificates. We don't know yet, but there's a lot of potential here. But of course, it is very commercial. Not all the courses are going to inspire you, but it is that just-in-time learning, a massive selection. And that's becoming very popular. And that leads us to a new landscape of credentials, where instead of the traditional degrees and certification that we get from universities and adult education, we now can collect endorsements on LinkedIn. What are they in terms of value? If you've been endorsed by many colleagues, that's a sort of qualification, isn't it? Is that worth something on your CV? The certificates you get from non-formal courses, many courses offer badges, sort of e-certificates that you can take with you and post up on LinkedIn or on Facebook or whatever to show whoever is interested. That's a new credential. Some of the MOOC organizations talk about specializations, where you collect a number of MOOCs together and get a specialization certificate. A MicroMaster, I think it's edX offers them. Udacity, we're offering so-called nano degrees. We could say, oh yes, but that's not accepted in Sweden. But wait a minute, if the employers accept them, then this is hard currency. No matter what the universities say, it depends. If employers think that my MicroMasters from edX is a good qualification for a job I have applied for, then it's worked. Again, who do you trust? Many opportunities here. My final slide really is, this is the problem this is the nasty bit at the end. The people who most need all this open education don't even know it exists, and they don't know how to use it, and they don't know how to study online. They need help, they need support, they need ways of getting on board because they risk falling behind.
Sorry to interrupt. Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Who will benefit from this new climate of private companies? So knowledge as a commodity, if you say. Who will benefit from this new climate of credential? The big companies, or do you think any of the big companies will step in? Google, for instance, or others would take a more significant part in this strive for knowledge, or like distributing the knowledge?
I think I mean, we can see already, I didn't mention sort of the big giants, the big five and so on. I mean, Google and Microsoft and Apple and so on, of course, are enormous players in this, and they want a part of the action as well. There's enormous money in this market, absolutely enormous. I'm a little worried about how it's being taken over by these companies. And within the education sector, we have to be a little bit careful about the motivation behind these companies' interest in the education market. I think the people who will benefit from it are educated professionals. The people who already are educated will get even more educated, will become even more flexible, and will learn more. My last slide there was about, what about everyone else who have never heard of any of this, who could benefit but just don't know where to start? What do you mean an online course? How do you learn online? I've no idea. And how do we help people to find the advantages? I think we're going to help. We need to bridge this digital gap that's widening all the time between the haves and the have-nots. And it's very dangerous when we're leaving so many people behind. And these are not non-digital people. I mean, they're people who just simply don't know about this. And they're going to need help. They're going to need people to help them on the way. Libraries could play a big role in that, in working on sort of digital literacies and helping people to learn online or to learn how to learn online. Adult education, folkbildning, I think all could play a part here, but there are many other roles. But I don't want this to become a sort of educated elite flying off into a brave new future whilst the rest are stuck on the ground. I suspect there's pizzas.
Yeah, in a second. Anybody else who has a question? Otherwise, I have a final question. It's a bit mean question, but do you think that Swedish formal education, like our universities, are equipped for lifelong learning?
Not yet. I think
when will they be?
Some more than others. Some are much more active in sort of work-based learning and more active in attracting sort of non-traditional students. But I think we're still very restricted by a system that is built on that is traditional. We're very restricted by the universities are governed by documents, a letter that comes from the ministry every year telling each university what you're going to do and how much of it you're going to do and what your focus is, and you try to deliver that. So it has to be steered in a new direction. The universities aren't completely free to try every new innovation that comes along. We have to deliver what the government wants us to deliver, and that's very carefully written down. So it's not that easy to go out of the box, because we have a box and we have to do what our uppdragsgivaren säger. The government, the government tells us what to do and we have to do it. We have some freedom, but I think someone's going to have to go off after this market, and I wonder if we maybe need to form a new type of university in Sweden, a sort of new open university, which is totally focused on lifelong learning, totally focused on distance, and enabling more people to get access to higher education. If that is more useful than letting the existing universities all try to do a little bit each. I'm not sure. That's maybe radical, but I think I like the solution in Scotland there, and I like some of the open university ideas around the world. And
it's a follow-up that you answered partly. It was if it's not Sweden, then who's doing it right? Which country? You named Scotland, but is there any others that you can specifically name?
Which countries are doing it right? The lifelong learning or the open education?
The lifelong learning. To follow up to your question.
Oh dear. I don't think there's no sort of promised land out there. I mean, many are doing a lot of good things. in education, I mean, I find Estonia is extremely inspiring generally. They're very far ahead in most sort of things. They've got a very clear vision of where the country is going in terms of sort of economy, and so that they have a sort of holistic view of this. Estonia, yes. Netherlands, Ireland is doing a lot of impressive stuff. Australia as well. Sometimes quite surprising countries are doing more than the ones that you would expect. Sometimes it's smaller countries who are more advanced than the large ones.
Wouldn't that be beneficial to the government of Sweden to have more highly educated people with open universities?
Could you repeat that?
Would it be beneficial for the Swedish government to have more open universities? Is that correct?
Yes, to have more highly educated people.
And to have more higher educated people?
Yeah, I think we need to change the structures, but it is so difficult to change tradition. It's so difficult to change structures that are so embedded, and it's a mountainous task. It's easy for me to say, oh, we should do this or we should do that, but I mean, it's not so easy to actually do it. It's like turning a super tanker. But I think maybe the danger is that if we don't do something within the Swedish system, then external actors and international consortia and mega companies are going to come in and do it for us. And I think that's more dangerous if we allow the whole market to be gobbled up by the big IT giants. I think we need to be more proactive. I think we've got all the ingredients in Sweden because we have a great tradition in adult education, and I keep saying folkbildning because I don't know what it is in English. We don't really have the concept, but that is a strength, and there's a lot of change going on in that field of vocational training and open education. We can build on that as well. I don't have a good answer, but I mean, I think things are happening at the moment more than before. The pandemic has been a catalyst, and I think I can see in a lot of government papers coming out and from the authorities that these are questions that are being discussed now.
Extremely interesting conversation, Alastair. Thank you very much, and thank everybody on YouTube. And a big hand of applause to Alastair. Thank you.
That's a little my place is on the net if you're interested. But go to the slideshow and you can check all that stuff.
If it's okay with you, I'm going to bring you to the mingle place for the break, and you can chat with Alastair here through this computer. I hope.
Okay, that'll be interesting.
If you can stay a few more minutes.
A few minutes. Yep, exactly.